It seems like Lil Jeff's crew has finally gotten revenge for his death, as rumors are spreading that Trap City Rob, the one blamed for it, was just violently killed while in prison.
They stood over, man, 17 times to the
Sources say he was tortured into confessing before the hit went down, and I've got all the details. Let's break it down. Lil Jeff's killer is now behind bars dead. Talk is spreading fast online about Trap City Rob getting killed in jail. And while some people think it's just a rumor, let's be honest, it's not hard to believe. From day one, Lil Jeff's father made it clear that this story wasn't going to end at the funeral. When your son gets shot in broad daylight, you don't just move on like nothing happened. The man took to Facebook and poured out the kind of raw pain only a father who's lost his child to street violence can express. He said the saga continues and told everyone to clear the streets. But those weren't just emotional outbursts from a grieving dad, they were a declaration of war, a message that the Bloodhound family wasn't going to let their soldiers' death slide. And Pops wasn't alone in keeping that fire burning. Q50, Lil Jeff's closest friend and right-hand man in the Bloodhound crew, had been acting different ever since Jeff got killed. People on the streets were already whispering that Q50 was plotting something, getting ready to strike back and make Trap City feel the same pain they caused. It was the same kind of energy Lil Jeff had before his own death when he threatened his enemies with payback.
service announcement. On my dead grandmother's head, if I'm laying, I'm down, God could come pull me out this car right now. Never took a dollar from me.
That wasn't just for show, it was a code, a deep-rooted tradition within the Bloodhound circle built on loyalty, retaliation, and legacy. And when it came to Q50, those close to him said he was fully committed, even ready to die for it. Losing Lil Jeff didn't break him, it sharpened him, turning him into someone singularly focused on revenge. The beef between Bloodhound and Trap City wasn't new, it had been simmering for months with shootings, threats, and cryptic Instagram posts pointing to an inevitable war. So when Lil Jeff was killed, everyone knew it was only a matter of time before the situation exploded. Now, hearing that Trap City Rob may have been killed in jail doesn't sound like a wild rumor, it feels like the expected next step in the deadly back-and forth. Ironically, Rob had been praised as the Defensive Player of the Year after the shooting, with many saying he was just protecting his turf from an armed threat. But all that hype meant nothing behind bars. Jail has its own rules, and now, the same streets that once boosted his image were whispering about his downfall. Rob was arrested shortly after the incident, and although many expected a murder charge to stick, authorities later ruled the shooting either self-defense or mutual combat based on video evidence and witness accounts. In the legal world, that meant he walked free from murder charges, but in the streets, justice has its own timeline. The Bloodhounds didn't care about court rulings. To them, things were still unbalanced, and they were ready to settle the score however necessary. Even without a murder conviction, Rob wasn't off the radar. He was a convicted felon caught with a firearm, and that alone brought serious consequences. Labeled an armed habitual criminal, he ended up in the worst possible place, locked up, exposed, and surrounded by people who might carry old grudges or deep loyalty to the Bloodhounds. Jail isn't just bars and routine, it's a tense world of politics, alliances, and quiet warfare. And being associated with the death of a respected figure like Lil Jeff only painted a bigger target on Rob's back. To understand how it got this far, you have to go back to that violent summer day. That changed everything. On June 8th, 2024, what started as a regular day in the trenches ended with one of Bloodhound's most infamous members lying dead on the pavement. Lil Jeff's dreams of rap fame and street dominance were erased in a storm of bullets. The incident reportedly happened during a guerrilla mission to hunt down a rival on enemy turf. Video footage allegedly showed Jeff armed and aggressive, trying to break into a house where his target was hiding. But this wasn't a helpless victim, this was Trap City turf, and they weren't going to let an enemy invade their space without fighting back. Lil Jeff had no idea he was walking into a deadly setup where the person inside was prepared to defend himself at all costs. The outcome was swift and brutal. Jeff was shot repeatedly, with reports saying he took between 17 to 19 bullets.
Stood over, man, 17 times to the chest. The autopsy came out. 17 times. You see how little he was, like, to take 17 bullets? 19
For a young man known for being the aggressor, the one who caught his enemies slipping, this reversal of roles was both shocking and final. The very streets that made Lil Jeff a legend also became the stage for his violent downfall. Police recovered around 45 shell casings at the scene, highlighting how intense and chaotic those final moments were. This wasn't a quick hit, it was a prolonged shootout that left no doubt about everyone's deadly intentions. When the smoke cleared and sirens faded, Lil Jeff was gone, and the drill scene had lost one of its most controversial and prolific figures. But in street wars, death is never the end, it's just the beginning of a new chapter. The only questions are when payback will come, where it will strike, and how much blood it will cost. And judging by the whispers now, that payback might have just happened inside a jail cell. So how did we get here? Lil Jeff's death sparked a deadly feud. Like many legendary hip-hop beefs, it all started with something that might seem small from the outside: chain snatching. But in the streets, respect is everything, and even a minor insult can spiral into full-blown war. The conflict between the Bloodhound crew and Trap City wasn't based on deep-rooted history or territory, it began with jewelry. In early 2023, Lil Jeff, representing the Bloodhound Drill City faction, snatched Carter's chain. But it wasn't just theft, it was a loud message that the Trap City crew wasn't strong enough to protect their own. In the streets, that's the ultimate form of disrespect. Trap City responded hard on March 16, 2023, Lil Cap from their crew killed Zoni, a well-respected member of Drill City and Lil Jeff's cousin. This was no random act, it was an escalation. That single killing changed Lil Jeff, transforming him from an ambitious street hustler into a man consumed by revenge. Zoni's death ignited a fury in him that would lead to an unrelenting spree of violence. June 25, 2023 marked a turning point when Lil Jeff and Q50 killed Lau from Trap City, signaling that the Bloodhounds were now fully committed to this war. That summer, Lil Jeff stepped up the humiliation tactics, filming himself forcing big motion from Trap City to say Leo on camera before knocking him out cold. It was psychological warfare designed to mentally destroy his enemies. But Jeff didn't stop at embarrassment, he wanted bodies. On August 31st, 2023, he and Q50 found Glenn from Trap City and unloaded 15 bullets into him, a brutal statement of domination. Trap City retaliated by shooting Q50, who miraculously survived over 10 gunshots that fall. It was clear they weren't backing down either. Bloodhounds hit back again by shooting T3, proving this feud was growing into something more vicious by the day. What started with a chain had now become a life-consuming blood war, where survival hinged on how far one was willing to go. The violence was deeply personal, now no longer just about corners or crews, but about family, pride, and vengeance. Every death only intensified the hatred, and both sides were determined to wipe each other out. Diss tracks and social media only poured gasoline on the fire, turning the war into entertainment, where fans chose sides and glorified the carnage. Lil Jeff knew how to exploit this, crafting an image where his body count boosted his rap career. He treated his violent acts like a portfolio, regularly updating fans on social media with taunts and claims of new victims. This wasn't just criminal behavior, it was a brand built on death, where each murder became content. The psychological toll of living in constant war was immense. These weren't just young men, they were traumatized soldiers raised by the streets, turning their pain into aggression and their fear into firepower. The longer the feud went on, the more obvious it became that it would only end with complete destruction or full law enforcement intervention. But in Chicago's drill culture, cops are viewed as the enemy too, and cooperating with them is seen as betrayal. Lil Jeff's reign of terror blurred the line between gang member and serial killer. Most people think of serial killers as lone Twisted figures with dark motives and complex minds, but Jeff proved that in the drill world, you don't need a psychological disorder or an elaborate plan. Sometimes all it takes is an endless supply of bullets, an uncheckable grudge, and no regard for life. His transformation started with Zoni's death and escalated with every trigger he pulled, but what set him apart was how methodical and public he was about it, treating murder like a performance, and the streets and the internet as his stage. This wasn't just about protecting territory or chasing money, it was about building a reputation so terrifying and unpredictable that even hearing his name made people nervous. Lil Jeff's alleged body count during his short but brutal criminal career reads like a page from a crime novel, with law enforcement and street sources suggesting he was behind at least 7 confirmed murders. Jeff himself claimed responsibility for 11, often boasting about them in social media posts and rap lyrics, showing a level of arrogance and recklessness that would eventually lead to his downfall. One of his most high-profile victims was Lau, whose real name was Zhao Goins, gunned down on June 25, 2023, but Jeff didn't stop at killing Lau. He made the man's death part of his public image, constantly mocking him in diss tracks and online posts. This habit of murdering someone and then disrespecting their memory became Jeff's trademark, a way to ensure that even in death, his victims couldn't escape his shadow. Glenn from Trap City met a similar fate when he was hit with 15 bullets, a move so excessive it screamed not just murder, but a deliberate message of cruelty. It wasn't about strategy anymore. Jeff was killing because he enjoyed the power and spectacle. Perhaps the most disturbing moment came on January 26, 2024, during a shooting at Innovations High School where two students, Robert Boston Lil, Rob and Monchio Williams Monty, were killed in what should have been a safe environment. Jeff allegedly took credit and used the murders to flex online, posting that he had 10 hats with the last two being graduation caps, a sick reference to the fact that his victims were students. It might sound like twisted wordplay to some, but it showed how completely he had dehumanized his targets and turned murder into a game where the only score that mattered was the number of bodies he dropped. His spree continued with the October 2023 double homicide of Donnie, a woman from Hattaway, Jaro City, and Lil Jeff from Foster Park. Killing a woman showed that Jeff's violence knew no limits. There was no street code guiding him, no moral line he wouldn't cross. In his world, anyone even remotely connected to an enemy was a potential target, regardless of gender, age, or actual involvement in the streets. Lil Pooh from Trap City was another name added to the growing list, with Jeff hinting at his role in Pooh's death through mocking social media posts. The formula was always the same: pick a target, eliminate them brutally, and then turn their death into content to boost his street clout and musical persona. What made Jeff even more dangerous was how much he seemed to enjoy the psychological aspect of murder. He didn't just pull the trigger, he stalked his victims, watched their routines, and struck when the fear would hit hardest. This level of planning revealed a cold, predatory mindset where the kill was just the climax of a process designed to terrorize. And by constantly updating his body count on platforms like Instagram, Jeff turned murder into a twisted form of entertainment and personal branding, blurring the line between street warfare and self-promotion in a way that shocked even hardened observers.
Lil Jeff, he was on Instagram Live after he caught his last body, talking about, yo, it's 11 now, we up 11.
This wasn't just criminal behavior, it was criminal behavior turned into a brand, with death and destruction used as content to fuel engagement and grow his following in the drill music community. His music became the soundtrack to his alleged crimes, with tracks like acting as both a confession and a celebration of the violence he committed.
The next thing you know, Jeff's got a song out called Ah. I don't know if you've heard this song, but in the song he says, he was screaming ah when he got hit, and the footage of the kid dying on the ground screaming ah, is the self-snitching's just on another.
The level of self-incrimination in Jeff's music was staggering, with him practically handing law enforcement a detailed confession wrapped in beats and hooks. The psychological picture that emerges from his actions is of someone who had completely detached from empathy or any sense of moral boundaries. His willingness to kill children, women, and anyone even loosely connected to his enemies revealed that he had crossed lines most criminals still refused to touch. This wasn't about gang warfare anymore, it was about a young man addicted to violence and the control that came with taking lives without facing consequences. The fact that he operated so openly and for so long, despite bragging constantly about his crimes, reflects the complicated dynamic between law enforcement and Chicago's drill scene. Authorities either couldn't or wouldn't use his public confessions against him, creating a dangerous sense of invincibility that fueled his recklessness. But the streets have a way of catching up, and Jeff's reign of terror was always going to end the same way it began, with bloodshed. His death on June 8, 2024, while trying to commit yet another murder, was the ultimate irony. The hunter became the hunted, the predator became the prey. After years of handing out death, he finally crossed paths with someone just as willing to pull the trigger and end his story, the same way he had ended so many others. Lil Jeff's legacy is one of destruction, countless lives lost, families shattered, and a community left traumatized by a man who had lost all traces of humanity. His descent from a kid with potential to a serial killer roaming Chicago's South Side stands as a grim warning of how quickly a life can spiral when violence becomes the only language someone knows.